Welcome back to the Athlete's Edge podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about ownership when it comes to athletes taking ownership of their training, their preparation, their nutrition and recovery. I guess it kind of was off the back of a chat that you were having with me and a couple of the other athletes about sort of switching on to the new training app output. So I guess for you, why is it so important that kids do take ownership of that training, and what's the underlying message that you're sort of trying to make?
Well, I think the reason why it's really important is in the short term, it increases the chances they get the results thereafter. I guess the reason they're coming to see us. So from their athletic development, by taking ownership, will get them further than the kids that don't. If I go bigger picture, then it's all about those meta skills we've spoken about before around skills that they'll learn that now will help them for the rest of their lives. Not just themselves, but one day being parents and then having to teach and organise another human being that's dependent on them. And that doesn't happen overnight. So we start when they're younger, and at the gym and the training environment and trying to be an athlete, I think really fosters that, because there's a lot of that you have to learn if you want to do it well. And then as they build those skills, as they get older and they layer more and more in, then we just see a more well-rounded human being.
Well, let's go through some examples, I guess, for each of the training, the preparation, nutrition and recovery.
Yep.
What does it actually look like? Because yes, we can say ownership, but if people don't really know what that means, or if they have a different interpretation, they probably won't get the same result. So for you, what does ownership look like from a training point of view?
Yep. It's going to vary a little bit from kid to kid, situation to situation, and like different ages, different maturities, it'll evolve over time. I think at the crux of it, it is parents are setting the guardrails. And I think when people sign up to say something like us in the gym, it's been really clear on what the expectations are and the standards are from the start. So it's, if we are going to do this, we're going to sign up to 2 sessions a week. It's going to be, you're going to commit to at least 12 months. And Angela Duckworth in Grit talks about with her kids 2 years, because it takes a certain amount of time to learn it and then a certain amount of time to see if you actually enjoy it and if you're good at it. So you commit to that as a minimum. And that essentially sets up the guardrails around, well, this is how long we're going to do it for, this is what it looks like, these are the times. And then I think the ownership piece for the athlete comes in around, are they going to have their phone charged so they can access the program? Are they going to have their own drink bottle? Are they going to prepare a snack before they train? Are they going to set an alarm if it's in a morning session so the parents don't have to wake them up all the time? That's the stuff I think that you learn, one, whether the kids want it, but two, whether they've got the skills and the drive and the discipline to actually put it into practice, which again is a learned skill. So it takes practice.
And if we sort of go to nutrition, obviously it's probably harder for our younger kids to have a major say in what they eat, because they kind of just eat what's in front of them.
Yep.
So how can someone who is maybe a bit younger or wants to take more ownership of their diet and their nutrition, how can they help either their parents cook or whatever it might be, or how can they actually take ownership of themselves and do it?
Yeah, well, I think, again, it's that scale. So there's no reason why at 12, 13, they can't be in the kitchen helping parents, even if it's cleaning up as they go. I would bet I can pick the kids that sit on the couch and wait to get served dinner versus the kids that are more involved by how they act in the gym. And that is the kids that stand back waiting to get told what to do. If you don't tell them, they literally stand there for 45 minutes, are the same kids that wouldn't eat unless it's served to them on their lap. Whereas the kids that are great and really proactive, I guarantee you at home, they're involved in that process. They're either cooking dinner themselves or they're at least helping. So even young kids, like knowing what are your favorite snacks, communicating to your parents, they're running low, I'm on my last muesli bar, versus just putting the box in the bin or leaving the empty box in the cupboard. Like that's a simple act that takes some thought to actually think ahead to go, well, if the box is empty today, what am I going to eat in 2 days' time? I need to give my parents notice if they're the ones that do the shopping. All the way through to you do the shopping, you do the cooking, whether that's every dinner or 2 dinners a week. I think every kid, young athlete can sit on a spectrum between, just basically stock take all the way through to the full-time chef and helping cook the meals for the whole family. And where you fit depends on, your time and what you're good at and what you enjoy. But I think understanding that you've got to be willing to be involved in that process somewhat. That's the ownership piece.
And even the recovery aspect. So things like sleep, all those kind of things that potentially get neglected and whatnot. It's okay, what decisions do I have to make today, or what time do I have to go to bed today? Because I know I've got to get up next morning at 6 a.m.
Well, the sleep's an easy one in the sense that most people are at home and have some control over it, even younger kids. So if you've got your own phone, you're making a decision: do I stay up on my phone or do I put it, somewhere out of my room and go to bed, go to sleep? So that's one you can 100% take ownership. Am I getting my 8 hours? Am I going to bed at a consistent time, waking up at a consistent time every single day? Most kids aren't. And it's a choice they make not to do it. So when we talk ownership and that discipline, it's not an emotion. It's something that you do because you know you should and you have to, not because you want to or you don't feel like it at that point in time.
Is there a correlation between the best athletes and the athletes who take ownership over their things like training, their prep, their nutrition, their recovery?
All the kids, young adults that have come through, that have gone on and been successful, if I had to put them in a bucket, it was all that they probably cared too much and were all hard workers and all really diligent, as opposed to had to be told what to do. To the point that, yes, sometimes we had to pull them back. Other times, yes, they got things wrong or they needed to be educated on certain things. Like they don't have all the answers, but things like, effort, the enjoyment they got out of their training. Yes, they didn't always want to get up early, but they knew that if that was the only option, they'd find a way. A lot of that came off their parents. Like a lot of them had, really supportive parents, absolutely, but pretty tough, strict parents. But they were really good at going, what do we need to do to get you there? What do we need to provide for you? And then almost stayed out of the way and let the kids train and develop, whether that's with their footy coaches or netball coaches or basketball coach, and then in our environment. But yeah, they were all really hard workers. They were all quick to send a message if they couldn't make something, which was very rare because they basically didn't miss.
Around the ownership around the why certain exercises matter. I know you always kind of reference Darcy here, how he's always so curious around why am I doing this exercise, and it's not through a lack of trust or anything like that. It's through I want to understand how this is going, like how this is making me better.
Yeah, it's a how is this making me better, but also how do I do this the best of my ability for themselves, but for me. Like they respect your time as well. I think that's like coaching Darcy in that environment. You get that feeling that it's almost as much about me as him, and it's just that respect. What you notice with those sort of people is there's very little, if any, chat in the background. There's no, like switch off. Like there's a bit of that before the session. Once that session starts, they're locked in. If that's 45 minutes, if that's 90 minutes, it's do the job, and then we can unwind and have a chat after, like go for the coffee or, sit in the sauna and catch up then. But during that time, it's almost, any chat that's not related to what I need to do, it almost annoys them. And that's not just Darcy, that's a lot of the successful ones that I've worked with.
And if we kind of go to, I guess, the environment, you kind of touched on how the parents can set up some guardrails to help their kids for success. So they've got, I guess, a safe fall when they do fail, which will happen from time to time. Because again, like you said, it's not going to be perfect, but how can their environment impact them from an ownership point of view?
Yeah, well, I think it's huge because if it's a learned skill, and I like the safe to fail kind of lessons or experiment as a way to kind of word this, because failure or getting things wrong is where we learn lessons. Do we want that to be catastrophic? Obviously not. So we don't want injuries. We don't want, negative consequences like cut from teams or, but we do need some mistakes so that they learn the lesson and go, yep, I tried that. It didn't work. So I think by setting up guardrails, we keep it safe. And that's the same thing we do in the gym. We've got exercises that aren't always done perfect, if actually very rarely are done perfectly, but they're done pretty well to get the benefit we want. And once they get really, really easy, obviously we change it, either change the exercise, change the load, because to learn a new skill or to get stronger or to get faster, we need to overload. It's the same with our brains and these habits is if it gets easy and on autopilot, great, but we're not really challenging them anymore to learn new skills or to get better. So by having our guardrails, they're going to do this in between. They're going to get things wrong. They're going to get things right. We're creating a safe environment for them to learn those things. If they fall behind, the parents are there to pick up the slack a little bit or give them a little clip or a bit of advice to get them back on track. But then they have to then take that and run with that information to then, how do I implement this more consistently? And once you're doing it consistently, that's when you open the guardrail. So we talk about our 2 session a week to 3 sessions to 5 sessions. Bigger commitment, a lot more you have to get right if you're going to train every day versus if you only got to come in twice.
And we're sort of talking off camera inside before around, I guess, what you would do with Geordie when he's sort of at that age. So do you want to kind of share that?
Well, one of the big mistakes I see is, and this is where maybe too hands off and the kids can make too much of the rules, is Geordie into sport. And that, is a sort of, I shouldn't sound like a super strict parent here. It'll be for fun and everything. When he gets to the age that he wants to take it more seriously and he's played different sports and he's like, Dad, it's basketball, I love it. It's like, okay. Well, if that happens on a weekend, the contract, essentially the agreement we have, if we're going to take you all these places and get you in all these programs and help with all this stuff, there's a commitment back from you. And it's, you're going to do, say, 3 gym sessions a week. You've got your 2 club sessions and you've got your skill session a week. We're making the agreement that if you want to play on Saturday and that's the fun part and that's the reward, you don't get to do that unless those 6 boxes are ticked during the week. What that does is it sets the expectation that then when things pop up, you can make really informed decisions. So a lot of our kids struggle with school sport. So, well, if that means you're going to miss 2 of the 6 sessions that now are required for you to play on the weekend, you're now faced with a choice. Do you want to go up the coast somewhere and play a school game in Sydney or wherever on the Thursday and miss playing Saturday? Or are you going to not go and play with the team and get to play with your club on the Saturday? These are the choices you make because you don't get to do it all, because the kids that try and do it all get nowhere. And we see it all the time. They often after the fact go, I shouldn't have done that. I went up there and I was a bit tired and I wasn't really locked in because I was thinking about the weekend, and then I came back and I was sore from Thursday, so then I didn't play well on Saturday either, and now, kind of let both teams down, and in the end, the person that suffers the most is them because they're trying to do too much and they don't do anything really well. And I think that to be really consistent, you just need to know, well, again, what are the guardrails, what are the rules, what do I need to work in so that then you get the result you want. Now, that doesn't mean to say that that doesn't change over time. And like I said, you pick a time point, you say, we're committing to this for 12 months. If after that point you decide it's a different sport or a different musical instrument, I think you've given it enough time to then make a informed decision to say, okay, that's not working, I don't enjoy it, or I don't like it, I'm not good at it, I'm going to try something else. And that's okay. I'm all for that, but it's not because you did it for 4 weeks and you didn't like it, because that doesn't teach any of the skill around, like we're talking commitment, but like resiliency, developing that grit, because if you only do things when you feel like it, you'll never do anything.
I feel like it's also sort of teaching them in a way that, there is consequences for their actions and the decisions that they make. There's always
Absolutely.
a trade-off. You can't have it all in life.
No,
so they learn that sort of important skill, which I think, especially I kind of watched this generation growing up, it seems to be less and less in terms of taking ownership over, I guess, not really thinking long-term. It's always that short-term gratification and the next day or this thing is so important that I sacrifice the next year or 2 of my life.
This is a conversation I have sometimes with the swimmers, and it comes back to our sleep. Short-term gratification, that one morning you go, I don't have to be up, I'm going to have a sleep in, but now you can't get to bed that night, and now you have a shit sleep that night. So that in the moment then to get an extra 2 hours sleep ruins now the whole week off the back of now you're struggling to get to sleep early so you can get up the next morning. Whereas if you just got up when you said you would, and now you're in a routine, and then just the rest of the week flows.
So any last sort of key takeaways or messages around the ownership piece?
I guess the key takeaway would be, like we're talking about it here, but it's not something that you can just, put a banner up or, like a poster and say, this is what ownership is. It is a skill. It's a behavior you have to train. So it's, packing your own bag. It's setting the alarm for the morning. It's not being a drag when you got to get in the car to go, like actually helping mum and dad or siblings out so you actually get in the car and get to where you need to be on time. You're really proactive with your preparation. You're really coachable in sessions. Like, all that stuff is very rare to see everyone get it right. So it's something that can be worked on. It's just that most aren't willing to invest the time to get better. And if it's a behavior that takes time, then yeah, I think it's worth learning, but you just got to stick at it.